What's going on, people? Welcome to a very special episode. We'll be looking into the latest finances regarding Palace, and I brought the main man himself, of course, Tim, to do all the latest analysis. We're going to be talking about John Textor. Did he really put in £30 million? And also Steve Parish, Harrison Blitzer. How are they making the money from the club and more? As always, if you do enjoy the content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to not miss out on future Palace videos. Tim, how you doing? I know it's early morning over in America. You've done a lot of analysis for this, but yeah, you seem excited about this report. We spoke about it before, and there's a lot
Yeah,
of stuff to talk about.
I like it, Dee. Yeah, it's good to do this, man. I appreciate it. I think it's a good report. It increases my faith in Steve Parish, and I am I'm very happy about that because I want to believe in Steve
Mm.
Parish. I love the guy, and I think it reflects the club moving in the right direction. There's some good stuff in here, man. I know we're gonna get into it, but there's some good stuff in here.
Yeah, look, let's get into it straight away. There's no point wasting time, and let's show you the documents. But let's start off with the overall picture at Palace, and that is with in regards to the turnover, as well as we can see from the screen that the turnover of Palace from 2021 to 2022 year ending it's gone up, Tim, and that must be a positive. But what's the reason for it going up? Is it broadcasting? I'm seeing that sponsorships and advertisements. Overall, it seems like healthy picture, but gate receipts, you can see significant increase in that as well.
Yeah, I mean that's COVID. That's recovering from COVID. It's also the periods are not exact. So
Mm.
there's 13 months for one period and 11 months for another. So it's not perfect, but it is good. Like 19% up overall. The turnover is really nice. The broadcasting is up a bit. That's probably at least in part due to the cup run. Like
Yeah.
because at least here in the US, you get additional games, and we got a lot of additional games on ESPN Plus, just playing those cup games. So that's pretty nice, but that's a nice bump. The one that's a little interesting is those other commercial activities, which are undefined. I'm not really sure, but that's up over 200%. I like the gate receipts are an area where we can get a lot of additional benefit at Palace. So when there's investment in the main stand and when that main stand is finished, that's an area where you could see a lot more growth here. We can get more into that later, but I mean, this is a good number. If you adjusted it, now to be fair, if you were to adjust it and say like, you know what, let's do an apples to apples comparison, and they have done that, you'd probably add another 10 million pounds of COVID relief to the 2021 numbers, but that would still be a big jump. That'd be a double digit jump year over year. So Palace is moving in the right direction. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and in terms of cash as well, it seems like there's been a jump in that regards as well. We're seeing that there's 8 million pound in cash in the bank, up from 1.8 million. That's a positive as well in that regards. Why do you think that is? Is that down to COVID potentially? After COVID is recovering and having more cash?
Yeah, there's certainly that. There's also just the general cash from operations that the company is generate. Not the company. I'm used to saying the company because of my job. The club, not the company. The club is generating a lot more cash from operations. So club generated about 9 million pounds in cash from operations. And that's down a little further. I'll have to find the exact page for you where the cash flow is. I think that might be page 19. If I'm wrong about that, that might be page
Yeah.
19 or
Is this
um
a page?
yes, cash generated from operations there. So you see all the way down there at that bottom line where it says go down. All right, cash generated from operations, so 9.8 million. Look at the
Yeah.
difference there year over
Yeah.
year versus a $39 million 39 million pound loss. I mean, that's a huge difference. So you know, the club's just operating better. And it's a better environment, obviously, but when you're generating cash from the business, that puts more money in the bank. So yeah, 8 million pounds in the bank now, but the costs are getting better too. Like they're, the overall wage costs, and this is something we talked about, getting rid of some of going from the oldest club in the league to one of the
Yeah.
younger clubs in the league, that significantly improved the wage bill. So the wage bill was down 10% overall just for player wages. Um, and here's the thing that I like, D. This is just a you don't see it here on this page, but like 93% of the money spent on wages, and this might be, we were talking about this. If we go to, it might be page 27, if I have that right, where
27.
we're
Yeah.
talking about the wages. Right? No, I have that
No.
wrong.
Yes, it's
But
fine. It's fine. Yeah, the
but
wages. Yeah, the
uh,
wages. It seemed like it has. Yeah, it has gone. It has gone
the
down.
operating costs are better.
Yeah.
But 93% of the money that we spend on wages is on players. I mean, that
Mm.
is, you want to see that. Um, if most of the money that's coming through the door is going back out to the talent that's got the product that's going out on the pitch, that's going to be good for the club, and you can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. Yeah, agree. But then again, it seems like we're a bit tight there as well. If you're talking about 93%, that's it's a high amount. But yeah, there's that question
it'd be nice
about,
if it was 100%, wouldn't it?
yeah, exactly. It'd be nice if it was 100%, but yeah. But yeah, I think 93% is a healthy amount. But let's move on to John Textor, because that's been
Yep.
one person that's been on the talking point for many Palace fans, and for
Yes.
different reasons. Some Palace fans are saying he's doing a decent job. Others are saying get out of the club and this and
Yep.
that. But let's talk about the number side of things financially. So I believe this is on the
Yeah.
equity
If we
in
go
terms of
down,
shares capital. Yeah,
yes. So if we go down to where it says, so the balance as of June 30th, 2022, at the very top there, it says issuance of share capital. So you see
yeah,
where it says there 87.5 million pounds. That's
yeah,
Textor. That's new investment from John Textor. So 87.5 million pounds put into the club for shares. And if you divide that by the bottom balance there, so that's 182. So there's your total equity, that 182 point, 263 million pounds. That's 48%, D. So I'm not saying that John Textor owns 48% of Palace, but that's a big portion. He bought a lot. The open question is, and I know we'll get to Harris and Blitzer later. We're going to stay on Textor for a bit, but that 46 million, that essentially was a loan repayment. You see the loan repayment there.
yeah.
That I don't exactly know what that is, D. I don't know if that's Textor buying back some of, buying out maybe some of the positions of Harris and Blitzer. It's hard to know exactly, but that is a shrinking of the total equity pie. So Textor has come in and he's made he is now a significant owner. It is, I've seen it reported by The Athletic that he owns over 40% of the club. That makes sense when you look at this number right here.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's a lot of money as well. It's a lot of money as well. And
Huge.
if we're talking about reported ownership going up to 48%, then he's basically on the verge of being a majority
He's
hold. Like
close.
it just yeah, very close to it, which will be interesting to see, because we'll talk about Harrison Blitzer, but in regards to how they make the money, maybe they could potentially one out of the club. So yeah, make sure to stay tuned for that. And about Texter, of course, we're not going to be done with Texter. It's not just about the shares. Let's move on to the next page, where you can see a bit more about the cash flows. And you mentioned,
Yeah.
the tangible fixed, is it intangible fixed assets?
Yeah. If we look, so under the cash flows from investing activities, so if where that 5.2 million is, so then you go to the very next line under
Yeah,
under the current year, right? So if you highlight that 56.477 million pounds, that's Texter. Like, where did he have the impact for us bringing in players? It's right there. Those intangible, I hate that we call players intangible fixed assets,
yeah, but they are though. That's the
but
reality
that's what they
about
are.
this. Yeah, yeah, they are.
That's what they are.
They are.
Like in accounting, that's what they are. It's they produce a product on the pitch that is not like made in a factory. The product is out on the pitch. So it's like what we watch, and like hopefully we get more joy from the match versus Southampton on the weekend. But like that's what that is. So like that money spent on this is probably transfers. There's there may be some holdover in there too, but yeah, of that 87.5 million, a lot of it went into basically paying for transfers. That's where it showed up. So that was his impact this year.
Yeah. So do you think that's sustainable though? Because we talk about Textor, does that mean that he needs to put in that amount of money for us to go spend more and bring in more players?
I mean, I watched you and T talking about this, and T made a really good point about at some point, actually you both did. You both made this point. Like at some point, in order for Palace to become a self-sustaining club, you you have to be selling players. And I agree with you both. Like there is a point at which you can't just be collecting loans, and you have to be doing things that are self-sustaining. We're never going to be Tottenham, right? We're never going to have like Sellers Park is Sellers Park. And I think just about really every Palace fan, like that's our place. Like Selhurst Park is our place. Yes, we want a new main stand, and there is some investment there that's only just beginning. We actually do have to increase, our match day revenue. We can get some leverage out of that, but it's not sustainable, D. You've got to get more match day revenue. You got to get better sponsorship revenue, and you get that by going up the table, and you got to be good at selling. And so, like, I think we borrow a page from Brighton, and I don't want us to sell Michael Elise, but I'll tell you this. I want us to pull a Moises Caicedo and say, like, if you want Michael
Yeah.
Elise, what are you ready to spend? Are you ready to spend 80 million pounds? Because if you're not, don't talk to us. Like,
Yeah.
and if you are, let's talk about it, and let's talk about our sell-on fee. Because if you get them, we're taking a 10% or 20% sell-on fee. Are you ready to do that? Like, we have to generate those kinds of recurring annuity type situations where we've always got money coming back into the club to get self-sustaining. We're probably going to be able to sell some more shares and maybe get some loans from Textor and maybe even Harris and Blitzer, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be sustainable. Definitely not.
So the biggest talking point regarding Textar is that £30 million. Did he actually put the money through to the club? And Tim, it seems like he did, because we can see it at the final page right at the bottom, where there's a comment about, subsequent to the year end, an entity controlled by a director has subscribed new ordinary shares in Palace for around £30 million. And we believe that is Textar. So it did happen, Tim, but has money been spent?
We won't know that until we get the next accounts for the present year, but it doesn't look like it. Not yet. There's no reports that it has. So I think we're hoping that it'll be spent in the summer on players. But what's interesting, it says subscribe to a shares by it's an entity controlled by a director. And this is what's interesting. You remember when the Homesdale fanatics protested against Textor because of like the possibility of taking his whole thing, his Eagle football public, and then what does that
Yeah.
mean? Are we going to take Crystal Palace public? And it was really unclear. And so this suggests, I mean, we don't know for sure, so it would really be good for John Textor to speak to us. But this sounds, D, like Eagle Football, the controlling entity, is getting 30 million more shares. And so does that mean that John Textor, the person, put in 87.5 million pounds, and his company, Eagle Football, put in 30 million pounds? I mean, honestly, we don't know. And I know I'm really speaking like geeky accounting language right now, but it does make
No,
a
because no,
difference.
No, it's interesting. So we don't know exactly whether it's John Textor that's got these shares directly or if it's his company.
Or if it's or
Um,
his company, the company that could. And so here's where the thing that it would be really good for him to speak to us. Now, let me offer some reassurance here. Eagle Football is not public. And
mm,
Iconic Sports Acquisition, which is the SPAC that made an investment in Eagle Football, or a related company related to that SPAC, that's public, but they're still kind of monkeying around and trying to figure out if they're going to make an acquisition and would they acquire Eagle Football. Under US law, D, even if, let's say it happens that Texter sells Eagle Football to Iconic Sports Acquisition, right?
yep.
And those shares that Eagle Football has acquired of Crystal Palace Football Club go into this new public company. Even if the
Yep.
worst happens and Eagle Football went bankrupt, that does not mean that first of all, public shareholders would not get to vote Crystal Palace shares at
Yep.
all, like ever. And I mean, it doesn't seem like that. That's not the way it works in the US. And if the worst happens and it was bankrupt, then there would be assets. And in one instance, like assets of Crystal Palace Football Club would be available in bankruptcy for somebody else to buy. And then it would be
Interesting.
basically Steve Parish negotiating and saying, okay, well, who's going to buy these shares from Eagle Football? So it's probably not nearly as bad as it could be, or it sounds like. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little weird. We need Texter to speak to us. But I think the other side of it, and then we can move on to Harrison Blitzer, is like he's putting in money. Like,
Yeah.
unlike Harris and Blitzer, who don't seem to be putting in a lot, they're putting in a little, it seems like. He's putting in money. Like, he wants to invest. We can
Mm,
question whether or not his multi-club football model actually makes a lot of sense, but
yeah.
the man is putting in money. He
Yeah.
wants to invest in Crystal Palace, which makes me interested to hear more.
Yeah. I wonder how much more money does he have? That's my biggest question mark. He's
That's a
putting in
good
money, but how much?
question.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good
That's the
question.
big.
And his
Yeah.
company, I mean, I guess we should move on after this, but his company,
Yeah.
FaceBank, did set up a sponsorship with Palace that's
Yep.
paying
Here
us
it is.
900, yeah, 900 and what, 75,000 pounds,
Yep.
like on an
Yeah. We
annual
can see it
basis.
here.
So, like, that's pretty great. So let's,
Mm.
you know, I mean, we definitely need sponsorships. So awesome. More of that, please.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. That's good to see as well. But let's move on to the next set of owners, Harris and Blitzer, which
Yep.
we can actually stay on this page to talk about them. And the interesting thing about them that you notice is right above Texas 30 million pounds comment is that in October 2022, the group received a loan of 12 million pound, which is repayable over 4 years. So you think this is from Harris and Blitzer?
I do. I think so. There are director loans, shareholder loans is what they're called in the filings, are a part of the financing for Crystal Palace. It looks like this occurs like every year, every couple of years, and this to me looks like Harrison Blitzer put it in somewhere between 10 and 12 million pounds. They get some interest off of that. We pay that off. It's not a lot, pays about 5%.
Mm,
So, okay. I mean, that is, it's not zero. They get something for the money they put in, but they don't get a ton. And so,
yeah.
all right. It's not the same commitment that Texter is making. They put in their 50 million back in 2015. So
Mm,
Josh Harris just completed a $6 billion buyout of the Washington
yeah.
Commanders of the NFL. So he's leading that consortium. He's already going to have to sell some of the Harrison Blitzer, ownership stake in the Pittsburgh Steelers to make that happen. So,
Mm,
like, they're looking to. This is what we've always feared about them, at least most recently. They were committed. They've been looking to get out. This kind of
mm,
seems like, they were in the Steelers looking to get out. Now they control the Commanders. They're probably looking to get out of Palace. And in the meantime, they give us a little money. They get a little interest. And like, okay,
So that's how they
but
make their money. So basically, am I right in saying this, that they make a bit of money from the club by charging interest to the club, that the money that they
a
give?
little bit. Yeah, a little bit. It's definitely not, this is not Glazer money, man. They're not getting
Mm,
dividends. They're not, I mean, this is, if you were to try to compare them to the Glazers, you'd be wrong. That just
mm,
isn't what's happening here. They get a little bit of cash, and it looks like it's about 255,000 pounds, which, I mean, it's not nothing, D, but it is not the tens upon tens of millions that the Glazers are getting out of Man United. But yeah, they get something.
yeah. Let's move on to Steve Parish finally, because there's a lot of talking point regarding him as well, about the money he makes and what he's doing. I'll be honest, I lost a bit of faith in him because I don't know
Yeah.
with this ownership group whether we can spend the amount of money that's needed to push on to the next level. But about Steve Parish, you noticed it that he got paid 1.7 million.
Yep.
What was it? It's 1.7 million in terms of director compensation.
Most of
So
that due to Palace performance, right? So like he gets this. It's based on performance of the club. That was more than double the 2021 level. But I think those last two sentences are really important. D, like
sorry.
if you were to read
Yeah.
those last two sentences, and roughly what it says is that most of that money was due to an unpaid bonus due to performance of the club, and the vast majority of that is going to be reinvested back into the club. So like that's
Mm,
the opposite of Harris and Blitzer. Yeah, is Parish getting paid? Yes, he's getting paid. His pay is variable based on the performance of the club. When we're not doing that well, he doesn't get paid that much. When we're doing better, he gets paid more. And he got paid more this past year, and he's reinvesting those funds back into the club. Honest to God, D, like this is
mm,
what I love about Steve Parish, and I have to admit, I was starting to worry too. Like I
mm,
was I was getting a little wobbly. I read this and I'm like, no, he loves the club. He wants us to succeed. He puts his money where his mouth is. You know what? I'll take that because in American sports, I mean, I know I'm biased here because I'm American, but like in American sports, we don't have that. Palace is a
mm,
community club. It's a South London club. It is deeply embedded in the community, and it's always going to be that way as long as Steve Parish is leading the way. So no, I don't want a billionaire owner. I don't want an oil baron coming in and
mm.
taking this over. I'd like the structure of the ownership to improve a little bit, but this confirms my faith in Steve Parish.
Yeah, but when we look at these reports, especially with Harrison Blitzer, they're putting money forward into the club around £12 million that we saw, but it seems like they've kind of hit the ceiling in terms of the amount of investment they
Yes,
want, and also in the investment that
definitely.
they're getting interest from it. But look, based on this report, there's a lot to talk about regarding Harris, Blitzer, Parish, and look, it's 36 pages, which of course we don't have 2 hours, 3 hours to go through every single page. But
Right.
these were the main talking points. Look. Overall, Tim, am I right in saying that the club is in a healthy financial position?
That's definitely healthier. It's Palace is getting healthier. That's a good turnover. It's improving some of the revenue it gets, like those other commercial interests, the sponsorships going up. You've got a major new investor in John Textor who appears to be committed. And I think a good outcome for us, D, or something, at least from the financials perspective, what I'm watching as a
Mm,
Palace fan, I'd be really curious to see, and I almost kind of hope that Parish and Texter get together and buy out Harris and Blitzer. So then you have two owners. Like, I don't think I want four. I think I'd like two. And I think
mm,
I'd like those two. That would feel like a better outcome to me because those two seem to have the interests of the club at heart. They're investing in it, they're reinvesting in it, and the club is getting healthier. So there's definitely more to do, man. We're still a small club, but
Mm.
if the academy starts to pay off, if we're blooding this young talent, selling some of them, moving some into the first team, selling at a ridiculous premium, because I'll tell you what, the summer, let me end on this. The
Yeah.
summer is going to be a hard market for us to sell. I do not want us selling cheap. And based on what we can see, like we got that 30 million from Textor, I don't think we need to be selling this summer. I think we need to be buying. I want to be buying, but I don't think we need to be selling yet. And if we
Mhm.
are going to sell,
Interesting.
we better be demanding huge, huge premiums because Chelsea Football Club, I guarantee it, D, they're going to come out and they're going to say, cupboard's open. Who do you want?
Yeah.
Because they need to sell a bazillion players, right? And that's going
Mm.
to make it a buyer's market. And that's good for
Yeah.
us. Let's be a buyer in a market where prices are depressed because Chelsea's got to dump players.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have to be sensible. We have to be sensible. But look, that's it from
Yes.
me and Tim. If you guys want to see more financial videos, make sure to hit the like button and let us know your thoughts, whether it's changed or not on the ownerships based on what we discussed on this show. As always, leave a like. That's it. And until next time, up the Palace.